when it comes to the ROI debate. Is your tech stack paying off? My name is Francois. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Enso Connect, a guest experience platform for vacation rentals. We were founded back in 2019, have over 50,000 properties on our platform to date, 30 plus integrations. We focus on generating more revenue with upsells for guests and driving more automations with AI messaging. We've got some exciting updates on EnsoAI AutoPilot coming out in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned on that. We've processed over $1.5 million a month. So to date, we've done over $15 or $17 million for our customers in upsells. Millions of guests have gone through our solutions, and our headquarters are here in Toronto, Canada. A bit about the product itself. So really focusing on three main verticals. First one is the guest app. This is our leading product. We call it the boarding pass, just like a boarding pass for your flight, but for your vacation rental. Our second core product is our unified messaging platform, an inbox that allows you to text, email, WhatsApp, Airbnb message, booking.com message, OTA message, all in one place. And finally, EnsoAI, which is today a predictive response. So it predicts what the response should be. And tomorrow, like very soon, we're actually going to be answering many of these messages for you automatically. John, I'd love to present you as well. Would you like to share a bit more about your industry experience and what you have built?
Yeah. So thanks, Francois. Really excited to be here. Yeah. So my name is John On. I'm the founder and CEO of TechTape. TechTape was founded in 2021. And when I founded, previously I had a short-term rental. I still have a short-term rental company in Hawaii, and feeling the direct pain of the technology and of the revenue, I solved that for my own company and created TechTape in order to bring those solutions to the rest of the industry. My 2-bedroom, 2-bath condos routinely generated over 200,000 in gross revenue. And so one of our products, one of the services that we provide is revenue management services. And we provide that all around the world to increase your top line revenue. You have to start with a higher top line revenue in order to get to a higher profitability. So that's one service. The second service, which is what we're really talking about today, is streamlining your tech stack. Basically, there's a lot of different technologies available that solve lots of different problems. What we found was that the technologies don't always talk to each other, or one does one and another does another, and it confuses. And so we brought a solution that actually streamlines your operation. And so together, basically, we're helping your profitability by increasing your top line and then increasing your efficiency. We have a global footprint. We're primarily in the US, but to have a global footprint. And we're also in Canada, not Toronto yet, but we are in Canada. And so that's us. And Francois said, he and I for 3 years now have been talking about the fragmented technology. I think the industry's finally catching up and really feeling that pain. And that's why we're having this conversation today.
100%. Cool. So on the agenda today, we're going to talk about the true cost of your tech stack. And as John pointed out really well, it's about increasing that top line. It's about finding savings within your existing expenses. And this is exercise even as a tech company we do every single month to see if there are tools that we don't use anymore or that don't provide value because we've evolved somehow or grown out of them, as well as looking at how we can drive more revenue. And this is the case for every business. The true cost of your tech stack is going to be one of the first things we look at. Spotting some of these tech bloats. So signs and pitfalls of where you might be over investing in technology or where you might be over investing in other areas. What to think about when you're looking at adding solutions, like how to think through the ROI component. And this is something we hamper enormously at Enso Connect. And I'll share more about that as well. Different solutions, so streamlined solutions. How do you consolidate and automate these different things? And then a live mini teardown of a sample stack audit for different customers. First things first, let's think about the tech costs. What's interesting is most software companies in this industry charge per property per month. The traditional business model in this space, the more properties you have, the lesser the per property per month counts, but still the revenue grows for that tech company, but also just the cost for you. Now, what's been interesting though, is that according to Hostly, the vacation rental industry report, the monthly cost per property overall on technology has grown between 2021 and 2024. People are spending more on technology. I find this really interesting, and there's different views on this. Is it because people are using more tools? Is it because tools are becoming more expensive? And it seems to be a combination of the two. So the average tools used on average is about 6 to 15 different systems across six different categories. And the tech percentage of revenue, so 3 to 7% of the total revenue is being spent on technology. Why costs are rising? One, increasing complexity of a property management business. Every property management business that we start with are slightly different somehow. If you think about hotel tech stacks, a property management system in the hotel space is super cheap versus the vacation rental industry. And that's because you have all of these different configurations needed, different properties, different areas, different locations versus a hotel where it's more standardized. New features are being added as premium upsells, and that's because there are more and more costs associated to some of these functionalities. I'll point out specifically around AI. AI is not free. You probably see it with your own ChatGPT subscriptions. Now imagine processing that at scale. This means that these businesses are covering on what we call COGS, cost of goods sold. So there's increased costs there. And then what's interesting, and this is an AJL report, industry growth 24 plus tool categories. So there's even more fragmentation and even more systems. I find this hilarious because I wrote a paper for my dissertation at Cambridge a couple years back around the fragmentation of the space. And it has been playing out per my dissertation, where the all-in-one solutions are being pillar systems, but there's more and more tools still appearing left and center. And so what's becoming more central to a lot of operators isn't always just the all-in-one solution, but the all-in-one connected solution. So the ability to have better connections between tools, and we'll address that a bit in a minute. Where is tech headed, or is tech becoming a headache to a certain extent? 45%. That's how much VRM's tech, their biggest headache in a way, is always technology over staffing or cleaning and so on. And again, this is about, is your tech stack getting more complex, simple, and how do you build that over time? Now, John, what are those symptoms that we're seeing in the tech flow?
Yeah, definitely symptoms. One thing I want to say, you had mentioned how hotels, the tech stack is a lot lower, right? But
Yeah,
the fundamental reason behind that I see is one, there's like a way that you're supposed to run a hotel, right? There's a hotel school that you go to and you learn. And then you have a reservations department and you have a on-ground staff and everything. So there's less reliance on tech. But hotels have moving parts just like short-term rentals. Now, short-term rental, typically you have less staffing, and then so you're relying on technology to solve all these moving part problems, and that's why it keeps growing and growing, and we're trying to solve that problem. So the direction is good. It's just that, we need more tech in order to solve the problems that we're running into.
100%.
So what's happening? So because there's so many moving parts, a lot of folks actually start solving problems that they don't have, right? They go to a conference, they see like a new shiny object, and say, oh, that would be really cool to incorporate into my business. And then they're able to convince themselves, oh, it's only $15 a month, it's only $20 a month, whatever it may be, convince themselves to put it in. And so that's chasing the shiny object, right? Oh, this would be amazing. It'll make me so professional. So I think that's one of the symptoms. And what we would say is really identify what the top two, three, four problems that you're having in your business and really try to solve for those rather than just generically, oh, those other people are using it. So I think I should as well. So that's happening. Redundancy of solutions. So what's going on is not only are there lots of third parties that are specifically solving aspects of issues or problems in the industry, but now a lot of the PMSs are starting to bring in what used to be third-party solutions, whether it's dynamic pricing, forecasting, metrics, whatever it may be. They're bringing more in, trying to become that all-in-one solution. And there's always this balance. You will have some redundancy between your PMS and third tools that you have, but really being very deliberate on which tools are your primary and which are your secondary. And then obviously over time, you add more and more subscriptions and you start to feel your credit card bill and you almost don't even notice it until you look at the bill and you're like, well, why am I spending so much? So that's happening. And I have to say right now, that fourth point, I am having this hesitation paralysis where a tool is doing just enough that I don't want to get rid of it in my short-term rental business. But I know that it's a little more than I should be spending and there are better solutions. So that's when you need to make that decision to cut it off.
Yeah.
In terms of the cost, right? People just think about the subscription cost and the dollar amount, which that's a fact, and that's eating away at your profitability. I would argue, and I think you do as well, Francois, It's actually the human resources cost. It's the headache cost, the inability to focus on growth cost that actually is what the tech bloat is creating, because the technology is creating more friction within your business. And so you're actually ending up looking after the technology as opposed to growing your business. And I think that's the bigger cost that we want to be looking at.
100%. I would add as well the fact that it's the point-based approach to the problems that is creating that headache because you need connectivity. The thought of having everything in one platform sounds amazing, but the reality is as you grow, things are going to get more complicated. The thought of having individual solutions for everything is an absolute nightmare if they're not working together. And I think in this space, and there's a lot of reasons why things get difficult when it comes to companies working together. There's the overall competitiveness of systems wanting to build everything. There's also just the overall nature of APIs, depending on the technology being finicky or not. And then the hidden costs that you might not see as the operator that are coming from some of these systems that will accept integrations at the cost of some form of rev share, for example. So there's a lot of reasons why things might not mesh well together. But I think, John, you pointed out, well, there's a bit of a shiny object syndrome. You have one specific verticalized problem. You solve for that. You don't look at the overall big picture, how this integrates into your systems. And then you start creating more headaches for yourself. 100%.
And on that API connection or the connectivity, and this is the foundation behind what the TechTape's streamlined service, even if there is a tight integration, a lot of these solutions are built as, I don't know, once it's built the way the software provider wants to build it so that it could be scalable. But because every short-term rental operator is different, you might need a little adjustment in how they work together so that it works for your business. Again, you didn't go to short-term rental university to learn how to do it, so everyone doesn't operate the same way. That's where that connectivity and trying to make the technologies all talk to each other seamlessly. And I think that's that kind of missing piece right now where there's so many amazing solutions, but they're not really talking to each other. You're having silos of data sitting in multiple places, which that starts to become a huge problem for your operations.
I couldn't agree more. I've been seeing a lot more AI tools pop up, for example, and one of the challenges I see on the guest experience side of the AI tools is like they are great at being able to answer just basic questions, but then they don't factor in the context of has this guest gone through my verification process? Has this guest completed the HOA agreement? Simple workflows that you might have already measured. And then what ends up happening is this AI or chatbot just ends up answering, oh, here's your check-in instructions. And the guest hasn't even completed all the fields necessary. And so now you've answered one problem, you've automated one issue, but now you're jumping back in and trying to like, oh, get the agreement and so on. So it's finding ways. I personally distinctively categorize technology within almost the categories of your organization. I always say you're not going to have an all-in-one because my developers don't work on the same tools that my sales team works on, that my customer support team works on. However, they each have their own respective tech stack, but somehow they all communicate. So when a sales rep creates a new deal and closes that deal, it gets handed over to the CS rep, who customer support rep or service or onboarding rep, who has this information, who, if they have a technical issue, services back to the engineering tool that creates the issue and logs it. And so really creating the cycle that works for you. And that doesn't always come from having all in one in a PMS, but having the right tool organization. Go ahead, John. Yeah.
No, imagine trying to build an all-in-one for what you just described. It's if you think of it that way, it doesn't make sense, right?
I love the debate of the all-in-one, John. You know, you and I have had it for so long. I've had it with Terry White. I've had it with so many people. And I think what's interesting is just look at the amount of money that's being poured into some of these companies and then look at the outcome that you've gotten so far and think about your current tech stack. So you've got an all-in-one that has $800 million worth of funding, and then you're still using 6 to 8 different marketplace partners. You can wait another 10 years to see it, or you can start thinking about those different pods of your team and your organization and work it accordingly.
If you think about it, like the point solution companies, the amount of resources that they're putting into that specific solution, it's close to impossible for one company to be the expert at the overall PMS and connectivity, at guest communication, dynamic pricing. It just think if you think of it as a business, that's challenging. At the same time, like you said, do you want to wait until that that all-in-one develops to that level? And that's where It both creates a problem, but then there's a pathway to the solution.
100%. Yeah. So how optimal is your tech stack? Like, how do you do that assessment to think? Because I've seen people with like 20 different solutions and even sometimes solutions that do the same thing. And I'm like, wait, why do you have a guidebook here and a guidebook there? And then you use this verification tool and that verification. And they're like, oh, I don't even know. So how do you optimize that tech stack?
Yeah, this is a high level, and then we'll dive in a little bit more for the framework. But you're gonna have some redundancy just by the way the tech is set up. But you should really be very clear on which is your primary tool and not try to mix and match the redundant systems. That's really when you start having data living in multiple different places that create, even if there's one functionality that you love. And that's where, again, that connectivity piece is very important. But really, you should be very clear on which tool is doing what job and really define that for yourself, for your business, and then really build around that. The second point, the tools should definitely integrate and communicate. A deep integration, deep communication. Typically, that is between the vendors creating that API integration. What I will say is with a lot of the no code, low code tools and AI right now, and this is what Tech Tape is doing, you're actually able to make the tools talk to each other to fit your need. So it's not a disqualifier if it's not built in, but there is a process to make them talk and communicate seamlessly. Obviously, and Francois is going to go into this, you really have to look at each tool in terms of ROI, both in terms of dollars and hours. And sometimes paying more to save on human resources costs, or for your team to spend their time doing higher value work, can be way higher ROI than just eliminating a tool and calling that dollar amount done. And I guess the flip side is, and it was an example that you just gave, Francois, where an AI tool might give check-in instructions prematurely, right? Then you're babysitting your technology because you're like, oh my God, is it going to do that again? And you have a human being in the middle trying to make sure the technology is doing what it's supposed to do. If you find yourself thinking, is my technology going to do what I need it to do? You probably have an issue that can be solved.
Yeah. 100%. Couldn't agree more. It's again, it's finding the balance. Now, the way we look at measuring ROI, and there's different ways of doing it. I'll give you guys our example at Enso, and this is not to pitch you. It's more to think through what your problems are and how you think about measuring ROI. There's things like time saved, the revenue impact, the satisfaction of your guests, the automation ratio, so how much time again we're saving. It's really two things. Technology can either save you time or make you money. And if it's save you money, and that's usually a dying breed because you're just operating on pure cost. So I found a cheaper alternative to what is I'm currently using. That's also a completely dependent vertical, although usually what that tends to mean is diminishing returns over time if technology companies are fighting on price, then there's a sort of desperation attempt from that company to poach clients somehow. So really, how much time am I saving? How much revenue am I generating? That's how I would focus on it. And to give you examples on this, when we look at time saved, the idea behind it is how many of my people are spending time on this tool or focused on this problem. And one of the metrics here is the average handling time, which the industry benchmarks are 20 to 40%. So for example, 85% first replies under 15 minutes. Can I handle that with my staff? If not, okay, maybe a tool can indicate this. The revenue impact. This is one that I'm so big on. In fact, to the point that we've actually incorporated in our agreements a guarantee where if we don't make you your money back with the upsells and the fees that we generate for you, then you just keep using our software for free. So is your tech stack willing to back its ROI like we've done here? And not all will want to do this, obviously, because it depends on how you're going to use the tool. But what we're seeing here is on average 5 to 15% conversion on some of these upsells, even higher on if you go basic upsells. And it's 30 to 80 extra dollars that you're generating on a certain reservation. Now, what does that mean purely from a profit perspective? Imagine every reservation you kept $50 full profit. Think about the margin perspective on that. Not just, oh, it's $50. I don't really care about $50. It's $50 that you keep 100% of. So it's actually fairly significant. And again, as you're going through this mental exercise, you also want to know like the data sources. Is this playing well with my PMS? Is this playing well with my other tools? Is it going to create a new revenue structure, but I have to manage this? Or is it going to create a revenue structure that's seamless? Guest satisfaction. This one, I think every software needs to focus on this a lot more. I'm self-serving because I'm a guest experience platform. So this is what's top of mind for me. But 95% of Airbnbs have a 4.5 or higher. That means if you have a 4.4, you are literally in the bottom 5% of your market. You are invisible to most guests. And it's to the point that even Airbnb is going to be like, this property is in the bottom 5%. They're going to call you out and make sure people don't actually like you. So guest satisfaction is key to driving more revenue, which is effectively your top line. And then last but not least, the automation ratio. I think this one is huge, especially as AI becomes more autonomous. As we see agents being able to even book reservations on behalf of guests, you should be able to start seeing more agentic workforces in your business. So start thinking about how many of these tasks are being handled by humans and how many of these tasks are being handled by AI, because that's going to be real scaling efforts in the future. So quick thing on how we look at that. We have a dashboard in-house where we measure these different markers and we let you see how you're progressing. And then of course, get feedback from your team, run evaluations every 90 days on what have you achieved where. And it could be also just the fact that like the humans within your teams aren't implementing the technology well or haven't understood it. So leverage these partners to better figure out how to best use the tools. And then a baseline assessment as well on the tool. Yeah. John, are you?
But again, so on, what we're saying additive solution, and Francois, I think more on like solutions like Enso, right? Where you're adding a technology onto your tech stack that actually solves across the board lots of issues. So do you want to talk through how you're looking at this?
100%. I'll tell you guys, we took a first approach of what is the guest experience. And when we first started, we realized people were plugging and playing so many different tools into their guest experience, a verification system, a guidebook tool, an upsell system, an AI messaging platform. And ultimately, all of these things touched at the guest experience and were all disconnected. The source of truth was always the PMS, but between these different tools, they weren't communicating. So we took a first approach of, and this is for every company, build, buy, or partner. And this is what comes into every tech company's mind. Do I build this? Do I buy it? Or do I partner with someone? We took a partnership first approach so that the disconnection of your existing tech stack wasn't a big burden. So you had already used a certain tool for verification. You had already used a certain tool for payment processing. We didn't want you to have to shift over to the completely new segment.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Rather connecting with it, and then started building some of these internal pieces, but really focused on guest experience. And the way we've proven our ROI effectively is with this ROI guarantee that I mentioned. But really the way I see it for this industry is you have your distribution services, aka your PMS. You have your revenue management / accounting / finance systems that drive the top line piece. You have your guest experience, which is the ongoing customer support. And then you have your onboarding, maintenance, and operations. And when you translate that to any other business, including what a technology business is, distribution is like my sales organization. Operations is like my operations. Finance for me is like your revenue management and your accounting and your finance. And guest experience is like my customer support. And then what do you have? You have marketing, which is in your case, your sales side, which is usually run by the owner operator who's going out and finding the new properties that they want to onboard and so on. And so when you start thinking of it that way, you realize you've actually built different organizations. And I think the businesses that thrive in this direction are the larger businesses, the larger property managers who have created these departmental organizations, but they have the capital to do. So as you're thinking about technology being in those departments, think about what ROI, what problem am I trying to solve within that department? But enough of me talking about this, John. What do you think about sort of this department approach and the ROI behind the different departments in technology?
I think almost every short-term rental company stumbled into the business, right?
Yeah.
They got one, it worked, and then they started growing and they scaled, right? And so typically the owner, the founder becomes this one marketing, sales, operations, revenue, all that. And so they have a hard time pulling those pieces out as cleanly as what you did as a technology company, right? And yeah, there are different departments and they fundamentally do different functions. So how do you bring that all together? And yes, the PMS is really the core still in terms of that distribution and that system of truth upon which you want everything to be working. Yeah, so you can go to the streamlined solutions. So what I want to try to go over is this. Okay, the additive solution is when you bring a technology that really helps solve a lot of your problems. On the flip side, you already have a lot of systems in your business, but it's not working well for you, right? Or it may not be working well for you. How do you think about restructuring it or rearranging it? So to streamline it, this is how we look at it at TechTape. First and foremost, your PMS should meet about 70% of your day-to-day needs, very well. If you're finding that it's less than that, you might not be aligned with the right PMS for your business, whether it's the scale of your business or whatnot. So that is the first point. And then, so when you're looking at a PMS, really look at like the top 3 to 5 very critical parts of your business that's important to you. And that's going to be different for everyone. And then make sure those parts are really working well, right? You don't need to do some third party solution to make those things work. That's what you should be assessing your primary technology with.
100%.
Then you look at kind of the point solutions, the secondary functions, and your PMS is going to have a lot of those features, and there are going to be a lot of ancillary third party products that serve those functions. The first pass is now, does that functionality within my core PMS, does that meet my needs or not? But don't throw away or don't not choose your primary PMS because your secondary functions, it doesn't do well. Really focus on the primary functions. So then you can bring on the third party solutions to solve your problem. And I think one of the symptoms of tech bloat again is when your tech doesn't work, but you settle because it doesn't work, but it's too painful to change or whatever. That can be problematic. So that's when you bring in a point solution. You want to make sure that when you bring a third party solution in, that integrates and it talks to one another seamlessly. So you want that native integration. And this may be with your existing tech stack. However, if that native integration isn't there, that does not mean that it can't work. It actually means that you can create the system so that they talk to each other and things go back into your system of truth. It's a little bit more work. It's a process, but it's not something that you just have to put a feature request into the company and hope that they build it. Again, every business is different. And so you can tailor it to meet your needs using these technologies that are out there. And again, the all-in-one, one size fits all, can't it just can't work. I'm sorry. I know that it's a debate, so I can't say this so definitively, but it's really challenging for one company to solve all the problems. And that's why this kind of tiered approach is how you should be thinking about what are my primary, what are my secondary, how do I make them talk to each other to get the solution that works for your business and you're not settling. What are some of the signs of things either being good with your streamlined solutions or not? Some of the red flags that you might see is that you're pulling together features within different tool sets that do something similar to try to solve your problem. That's probably a sign that you really need to start focusing on one of the tools so that there's one system of truth. Like we said, you have this nagging feeling that you're not really getting much value out of a system, but you're afraid to break the system. And so you continue on, right? And that's a sign that maybe it's still a great technology, but you really should assess it. And as Francois said, really look at the return on investment. And again, we talked about both the human capital as well as the dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah, success indicators that each tool has a measurable purpose. Team members actually, they come back to you and say, wow, implementing ABC was the best thing that you've ever done. It makes my job easier. I can focus on guest experience or making the operation smoother. And Francois, I don't know if you want to talk about the tech costs staying stable.
Yeah. Tech costs need to be somehow stable despite your business growth. This is where you can effectively look at, am I generating revenue? Am I saving time? Like, how do I measure the results? I was going to actually dive a bit deeper into the healthy of a tech stack. So as we mentioned, like 6 to 15 tools per operator across sort of 6 main categories. Look, as technology becomes more eminent, I think, quite frankly, John, I think this number is only going to get bigger and bigger. But I think the connection between the different tools is going to get stronger and better. I'm already seeing it. When we first started at Enso, we actually started as a messaging platform, not a guest app. And we started as a messaging platform, but we felt we got stuck with a very important piece, which was one, we didn't have a connection to Airbnb. So we couldn't send Airbnb messages. We had to go through the PMS to send Airbnb messages. And there were only 2 or 3 PMSs out of 170 that had the ability for third-party partners to send Airbnb messages. Some of them didn't even have internally the ability to send Airbnb messages and would send Airbnb emails, which, by the way, were cut off in September of this year or last year, if I'm not mistaken. So evolved into this guest app only to then move back into the messaging and really focusing on AI messaging because suddenly the different PMSs started exposing these APIs. So there's always, well, you'll see the technology get better and better over time, get more and more connected, which is going to contradict to a certain extent some of the things that we talk about, which is think about using the right tools in the right places. Don't use too many tools. You're going to get overloaded with even more solutions that come up, even more point solutions. So really assessing what John mentioned, which is the connectivity, are they coming in with an all-in-one play, or are they solving something very unique and in a very connected way? Focus on scale. And what I would say is interesting between North America and Europe is North America, we see operators that are really focused on that scale and efficiency, on optimizing the revenue. So just like I will spend money to make money and overall spend more on tech. Europe, it's more about compliance and control and saving money. Like, where can you make me reduce my costs effectively, which is a bit more of a process driven approach. And both are interesting takes to how you choose your technology stack. But ultimately, it's not about spending less. It's just about spending in the smarter areas. So fewer tools, deeper integrations, better automation ratios, measured ROI, and then of course a regular audit of some of those tools so that you make sure you're actually making use of this. A healthy tech stack matters. At the end of the day, your business will run on technology. If you want to run it entirely with humans, be my guest, but you will not scale. You will have a very linear type of growth. And in fact, your profit margins, your margins in general will not be as attractive for investors or for buyers if you're thinking about selling your business in the future. This is something that I always say, look at different businesses and how they operate. There's a reason why you see these crazy funding announcements of different companies. A company that is a technology company, you'll see them do $10 million in revenue and then get valued at $100 million. And you're like, how is this even possible? I'm doing $7 million. Does that mean I'm worth, sorry, speaking of tech companies, probably one trying to call me right now, but am I worth 10 times whatever my EBITDA is? And it's not always the case because you're in the service space, your margins are different. You have all these humans involved. So it's valued differently. And I think as you start thinking about evolving how your technology would be used, that will affect as well your multiples and how you could potentially sell your business in the future if you improve on some of these metrics. What are your thoughts on that, John?
Touching on that point in terms of valuation and multiples, having a clean, streamlined tech stack that the purchaser can actually then take over and operate with has a huge impact on that valuation. If you have something that's 3 different systems are hopping in to do different aspects of the same job, that's gonna start diminishing the value because, it's not a clean tech stack, and that is an aspect of why some of the companies are valued higher than not. And I didn't even come in thinking that we'd be talking around this, but the
You know,
value of it,
do this. I always take it off course, John. Sorry.
no, but valuation of a short-term rental company is not just about how many doors you have or how much money you're bringing in. Your financial, is it clean, right? That's all important. And is your tech stack good and
Transferable.
transferable? Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So that actually brings us back to another, like, return on investment. That's what you really want, is that ability to consistently build a tech stack that not only helps you operate and bring ROI on your day-to-day operations, but if you are looking to sell in the future, it's building value for the company that you're operating.
100%. And it goes back also to people risk, right? If you're like, I have all these systems really well done in place, but it's actually my people who are the systems. Me as the buyer trying to buy your business, I'm looking at this and saying, are these people going to be a good fit in my company? Because we might have a completely different culture. I haven't even thought about having a remote team. Whereas a system, a software will be like, oh, okay, I'm just merging from this to that. That's much easier from an acquisition standpoint. I know we weren't planning on talking about how to sell or buy vacation rental businesses. Definitely.
No, but
But
it's very relevant,
yeah,
and I know a lot of listeners they're not doing this just as a month to
it's
month
just for fun.
revenue, right? They're not doing it just for the revenue. They're actually thinking about selling their business. So If you want to talk about ROI and you consider that, then this conversation is even 5, 10x more important than just the operational efficiencies, which we've been talking about up till now.
100%. 100%. On the sort of next slide that we've shared here is really like this thought about how you're going to optimize. And we've peppered a bit on these subjects, starting small and scaling smarter. So focusing on some high impact automations that you might have, that you might need, and prioritizing tools around that. The measuring relentlessly on those tools. And it's not so much to point fingers and be like, is this tool adding value? It's more as well to know, am I driving the right metrics in my business? Because it could be the connection of different tools that's helping you drive. It's not necessarily one tool specific. It's the combination of some of these systems, but having true KPIs to measure consistent performance. And I think this is something, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I speak to property managers, I feel like seasonality in this business affects the North Star of some of these KPIs, where seasonality becomes the excuse for a lot of operators. Oh, it's my low season, so that's why I have worse ratings. And it's like, wait a minute. Doesn't matter that it's your low season. You shouldn't get worse ratings in your low season versus your high season. Maybe you can optimize that. So constantly improving is something that, how would you address that?
Yeah, no, I think that seasonality, if your performance is lower, right? Like it's this ability to say there's a reason for that, there's an excuse for that. And I think by having that, like you said, the relentless measurement or a dashboard that tracks it consist, not you just go in and you look and oh, this month this, but like you have that historic data, you can start actually optimize. Okay, as I'm going into slow season, here are the adjustments that we're making to make sure that we're optimized for the slow season, right? Yeah, I think there's this. On the flip side, I think everyone measures their performance by their peak season, right? Oh, this month, this year, I killed it relative to last year. But then if you look at the overall year, that's really what should be the more important metric and not that point in time.
100%. Couldn't agree more. I think it's the dopamine effect of that cash flow kicking in the summer season where you're like, this is where I make the bulk of my money, and which totally makes sense, right? But I completely agree. Looking at things from a year perspective or a quarter perspective will help you professionalize and also start thinking about limiting somehow that seasonality and potentially investing in markets that would counteract the seasonality. I mean, this is something we do at Enso for context, Sean. Like, we notice it as well. Our high season is your low season. Your low season is, and our low season is your high season. So it's polar opposite, right? Because when you're super busy and you're so busy with guests, like the last thing you can think about is implementing new guest tech. Like you are just too busy getting these guests through the finishing line. But once you calm down, you have this ability to rethink like, okay, what went wrong? What could I have improved? And that's where it becomes our high season. So we're entering our high season in the next couple of days. And I guess my point is, what's been interesting to neutralize a bit of that seasonality so that we don't bank only on a few months for growth, we started expanding into other markets. Now, this might not be something that every property manager wants to do, to expand on all types of markets or different locations, but different types of properties might attract different types of audiences and might help you combat, to a certain extent, some seasonality. End up looking at your portfolio on a more neutralized yearly way. Let's talk a bit more about audit team-centric approach. Do you want to address some of these points?
Yeah, on the audit side, and you mentioned this, it's a constant process. It's not like you do it once and okay, I got it right. Looking at both tech tape, actually tech tape especially, we are going through an audit right now to say, hey, is this system actually adding value, or have we run out of the value that it can generate? And we're slashing some systems that we don't need anymore while investing in new systems that will take us to the next level, right? And I think that maybe not quarterly for a short-term rental company, but at least once a year, probably twice a year, should be a systematic process to make sure, are we still getting value out of the systems? There inevitably you are going to find some overlapping functionality. Like you're not going to be able to eliminate it, but be very intentional when there is overlap and laser focused on which solution you're using. And then what's the cost of having that overlap? And if it's too much, then maybe you need to reassess. But in order to get the right solution for your business, there will be some overlap, especially because PMSs have a lot more functionality than they used to. And like I said, if there's an underutilized solution, you should have a plan to phase it out, right? So for an example, we have a back-end infrastructure that is kind of nearing its end of life, and we have about 6 months now to transition from this previous system to the next. So we're not rushing, we're not making a rash decision, but we're systematically transitioning from one system to the next so that by the time it's time to execute, we're already up and running. So give yourself that runway to make that transition. And then of course on the team-centric approach, at the end of the day, why are you using the technology? To operate better, for your team to operate better, right? So you really need it's challenging to force a technology down your team's throat, right? So it has to add value back to them. And so you need to get that feedback back from your team on, I implemented this tech. How is it working? So that you can continue to refine that over time. So that's part of that audit process where you're getting the feedback.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Team-centric approach. At the end of the day, you're not maybe the only user of that tool. So figuring out who's the champion and who's working on that is key. Quick content here as an example. This is one of the things I mentioned, the upsells and the revenue guarantee. Like the way we look at upsells, 25 rentals on average can generate up to $5,000 a month in additional revenue that you keep 100% of. But the impact financially of that is quite key. So you want to look at a tool if you're thinking about adding new verticals. Like this is the kind of impact that we're talking about. Can I strive to add $5,000 a month in revenue that you were not generating before in your business? Now, what's interesting is in the future, in 10 years, when upsells will become so basic, you'll be like, wow, this tool is so expensive. I'm doing upsells and I'm paying a commission for upsells. But in the early days, and it's kind of the same with Airbnb. Like Airbnb's created this market. Now I hear a lot of complaints about the cost of Airbnb, but okay, then you leave Airbnb and see what happens to your business. Like helped you create this market and allow you to even be a property manager in the first place and make it so natural. So this is the same thing. It's like get ahead of the curve, start thinking about these additional revenue streams and how you can have a serious impact on your business. And if you don't believe me, just believe some of the examples. We're going to go through some of these here. Most good night stays, they generate about $174 in revenue per listing per month. So if we go back to that cost analysis of tech stacks, where we're like, oh, it's expensive. It's $80 on average for all of my technology, my PMS, my this, my that. Oh, I just found a tool that's going to cover the cost of my entire tech stack and make me more. That might be an example. Or another one here is DG Home. And we keep talking about revenue, but I've actually talked to the team about starting to talk about this from a profit perspective because the profit is actually insanely expensive. It's insanely high. 8% increase in total revenue. What is the impact of that on your business today? Now think about it from a profit margin. What does that actually mean for your business? Is it 20, 30% extra profit if you keep 100% of this revenue? So these are just a few examples. Again, self-serving in my case, but just to give you an idea about how we measure ROI and how you should be thinking about ROI in some of your technology. John, you want to talk about this one unique edge?
Yep. And just as a explanation of like how streamlining technology, say 15 hours a month. Does that sound like amazing? Maybe not, but this is during the end of the month when it's a the closeout period. And essentially Mark at Unique Edge was doing it essentially manually at the end of the month as they're closing out the book. So we had created a solution that throughout the month, as reservations are coming in, we're feeding his bespoke owner statement process. And so by the time the end of the month came, he was just ready to go to get the invoices going. And so that's an efficiency that removes friction on that side, right? So then he was able to focus on more important things. And he's actually grown by, I want to say about 20% since we started working. We also provide revenue management services for him, but that's a side point. So it's those incremental wins. And if you keep chipping away at the things that create friction in your business, that's how over time, over a year or 2 years, you actually remove all those frictions and it actually becomes a huge return on your technology investment.
100%. 100%. I think that's exactly how I would see it. And for context, if you guys do want to learn more about some of these topics, I will share my LinkedIn here. This is where I'm always sharing more about some of these ROI metrics, whether it's upsells, whether it's saving time, whether it's AI. We're constantly running a webinar. We just had a webinar actually a couple of days ago with Price Labs, where we talked about the the H2 forecast for 2025. And then John, if you want to share here, we've got all
Yep.
three quotes.
Yep. And so this QR code is to my LinkedIn. This is where I primarily live on social in terms of both streamlined technology and revenue management. Try to stay fairly active, and you can always find me there. And you have the link here.
100%. What's the best way to reach out to you, John?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, email as well. And our website is gettechtape.com. And there's a lot of resources there as well.
Oops. I think there's right here, John at gettechtape.com.
John.on@gettechtape.com. Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. If you guys have any questions, there's going to be the chat bubble on the side. So feel free to ask them and we'll make sure to answer them as well. And then I just want to go through a few next steps, specifically additional resources. Let me just scroll back here if I can do it, which is first off the webinar post recording event. So if you weren't able to attend live, there will be a shared webinar post recording. Give you an idea of ROI calculation and how to think this through. We've got right here a guest experience tech ROI calculator. So it's ensoconnect.com/ROI calculator. A free consultation from TechTape to go through. What exactly will you be going through that consultation, John?
So we could talk through your tech stack, where your pain points are, so that we're able to, basically discuss the potential path forward, whether you're working with us or not, but at least structure that thought process of streamlining your tech stack.
Amazing. And then on our end, we're about to launch a huge model for AI messaging, self-learning, self-reasoning on your past messages, as well as allowing you to edit some of the content live from different systems, agentic effectively. And it's free for anyone who signs up or books demo before the end of the year. On that note, any closing remarks, John? We're arriving right on time here.
No, first, thanks for having me, Francois, and a really great conversation. Thank you, everyone, for staying the full hour. The technology problem, the bloat, is going to be an ongoing problem, and it's going to get worse and worse. And so it really is a topic that should be, and I know Francois and I will continue talking about it, but it's something that should be at least on your radar, if it's not top of your mind.
100%. It's going to get worse. I think we can rename it to it's going to get better in a way. It's just going to get more crowded very soon, especially as no code apps. People are building tools left and center. So it's just being able to clear through the noise is the hard part. And we'll see how this
Having a framework to work around that, I think that's really the important game. It's not going to go away. And that's really what you're doing with Enso, Francois. And that's what we're doing with TechTape.
100%. 100%. Cool. Thank you so much, John, for being on this webinar. We're gonna buy back 5 minutes from everyone's time here.